Dr. Tromans felt that it was still necessary to show Eddie the effects of putting vodka in the eye, and is taking us up to see vitreoretinal surgeon Felipe Dawahir Scala, who is going to show how dangerous eyeballing can be.
I'm going to show you an experiment on the effect of alcohol on an eye. Obviously, I'm not going to use a real eye. We're going to use a pig's eye, and that's what our trainees tend to practice on. So.
Oh my God, that one's got hair on it! Oh my God, that one's got hair on it.
Okay, so now what we're going to do is I have this syringe filled with vodka.
Right, okay.
And we're going to have a look and see what the effect is on the eye. Usually we use normal alcohol in different procedures, but vodka has 37.5%, so it's almost double of what we use usually. So I'm going to put a little drop of fluorescein. This will highlight any defects on the surface. So we're just going to put a few drops. Now the surface of the cornea is very, very, very difficult to peel because it's very well attached. And when we use alcohol on the eye procedures, it's to loosen that surface. So we've put a few drops now for a few seconds. And now we're going to shine the blue light again. And you can see how irregular the surface has become. Can you see that the stain was more even before?
Yeah.
And all these areas, which are probably areas of direct damage from the alcohol.
I mean, it doesn't look too healthy, really, does it?
The surface of the eye is very, very well attached, and it's very difficult to peel. Can I show you a video to see what a real human eye looks like after the influence of an drop of alcohol?
Yeah, I'm interested.
Can you see this is a little, what we call spatula, and it's just peeling off the surface. Can you see how the surface is peeling off?
Yeah.
How easily it's coming off.
Oh man.
So this is again with 20% alcohol. Imagine how much of an effect you will get with double that concentration.
I can't believe I even got eyesight after looking at that. That's how easy it is to peel off. I don't know, that's mad, that.
And did you say if you rub it, it makes it worse, makes the damage worse?
Well,
after
let's say you've had the shot of vodka in, that's loosened the surface, then you rub your eye, that will peel the surface off. If you do this, for example, on a daily basis, I can guarantee you that apart from the pain that you'll experience from doing it, you'll have long-term pain and impaired vision.
Right. So basically, it seems very, very dangerous to put alcohol in your eye.
But knowing that it's caused that much damage just for, a few hours, does that not frighten you?
Basically, you're just turning your surface into a bit of loose jelly that can just fall apart quite easily. Well, I think I need to rethink. I think you finally got me. No, I might have to rethink the whole situation. But yeah, it's that was quite an eye-opener.
It's not just extreme drinking games that can be damaging. Binge drinking can be just as dangerous. And the risks of drinking too much and too fast is something the government constantly deals with. In April 2010, the government introduced a law called the Mandatory Code to curb irresponsible drinking.
So this law, it's aimed at pubs and clubs. It's banned drinking games and anything that encourages speed drinking within a limited time frame. So, for example, you pay your entry fee to a bar or club and drink as much as you want till 9 p.m. It's also banned any irresponsible drinks promotions, such as all you can drink for £10. The law's also made ID checks compulsory, and they've actually made it illegal to have any kind of activities on any premises where alcohol is poured directly into the customer's mouth. For example, when they're on the dentist chair.
One bar that was affected by this law is Sam Jack's in Newcastle, famous for its dentist chair. Before April, alcohol could be poured by staff directly into a customer's mouth, but they've had to change their approach. I'm here to find out if the law has made a difference.
I think that the mandatory code, particularly about irresponsible promotions, it's all well-intentioned and it means well. Applying it, the inconsistencies and the fact that the main problem, the elephant in the room, is off sales. And so the mandatory code, although it's good in theory, the practice with off sales as unregulated as they really are, completely destroy the initiative.
Do you think there's any solution to this problem?
If there was a minimum unit price, and if the supermarkets really got on board with it, then a minimum unit price might make it so that people got the choice a little bit closer. If alcohol is dangerous, then why can you buy it cheaper than bottled water in supermarkets? Alcohol should be sold in designated licensed outlets, whether it's on trade or off trade, and it should be priced according to how well it needs to be used. And I think it needs to be given a bit more respect.
With 70% of all alcohol now being sold at off licences in supermarkets, there are concerns that cheap alcohol is flooding the market. But how cheap is the booze at these stores, and what would a minimum unit price on alcohol hope to achieve? To understand this debate about pricing, I visited a few supermarkets and I've bought a selection of the cheapest spirits, wine and cider I could find. My aim is to work out exactly how cheap booze really is.
Because of all the different shapes and sizes of drink, it's hard to compare prices. So the best way to kind of figure it out is to calculate the unit price.
To do this, I need to get the cost of the drink and divide it by the number of units in the bottle.
So this bottle of cider is £1.89, and I'm going to divide that by the amount of units that are in there, and it says 10.6 units. And that equals, it's only 18p. So that's very, very cheap. So I'm going to write that down here.
So let's see what the rest is.
26.93. God, that's cheap. 9.6. 39. And it's still ridiculously cheap.
With a unit of alcohol selling for as little as 18 pence, no wonder there's been a national debate about introducing a 50 pence minimum unit price.
For example, that would mean that this bottle here would go up to £5.40 rather than being £1.93.
But this hike in price would only affect alcohol that is on the market for under 50 pence a unit. So, for example, this bottle of vodka would not change in price.
I read somewhere recently that it actually costs more to buy a chocolate bar than it would a unit of alcohol. So, for example, this packet here is 49p, and most of the stuff here, in fact, pretty much all of it, bar one of them, it's all cheaper. It costs more to buy chocolate than what it does for units of alcohol. It just seems wrong.
I'm in London to speak to former Labour MP Sally Keeble, who is campaigning for the introduction of the minimum unit price.
So do you think there will ever be a minimum unit price?
Supermarkets can't do it themselves because otherwise they'd be accused of price fixing. The only people who can do it is the government. Obviously it's a difficult thing to do. Nobody wants to spoil people's fun. Everyone's probably going to have too much to drink sometime. It's about dealing with the real problems of excessive binge drinking. The cost of binge drinking on the National Health Service is around about £3.2 billion a year. About half of all street crime has got alcohol as a factor in it, and the cost to young people is also absolutely huge. So cheap alcohol is actually very expensive for all of us.
We're all paying for it.
We're all paying for it, and that's why we've got to act.
We're all affected by having so much cheap booze on sale, even if we're not actually buying it ourselves. It affects the NHS, it affects the police, our streets, crime levels, and it just seems crazy that so little is being done about the cause of the problem, and everybody is just left to deal with the consequences.
I'm back on the London booze bus with paramedic Tony, and by 10 p.m. we've already got 2 intoxicated patients on board.
I mean, she was retching up
Right, sweetheart.
from the pits of hell. So tiny, there's nothing of her. So dangerous.
The reason I'm back for another night shift with the ambulance service is to check out a totally new initiative called the Alcohol Recovery Centre, already dubbed the Booze Tank.
Hello.
to see you again.
Yeah, you too. Good, thank you.
Good to see you. Right, so it's been a few months, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Right, let's take you in and we'll show you what we're doing now.
Brian, the paramedic team leader, came up with the idea, and with the help of Westminster Council, the centre was set up. Before, the booze bus would take patients directly to A&E. Now they can transport them to be treated at this centre, with the aim of reducing the number of drunks in hospital emergency departments.
So what's happened to this guy?
Friends have sort of stated that it's just alcohol and that he doesn't normally drink. So that's why he's got into the state he's in.
Okay.
Every half an hour, we'll wake him up.
Yeah. Is that a heart monitor there?
Yeah, but that will tell us his blood pressure. It'll also tell us his pulse.
mean,
and
he
in
seems-
that way, we can get him sober enough that he can either be picked up or get home.
God, he's just completely out.
Yep. Comatose. This is every Friday, Saturday night. This is what we're dealing with.
Little lay down while we get on the Kelly and Chris.
That's what we said in the beginning. The centre here, it's easing up the stress on the hospitals. You've got people who've soiled themselves, people who've vomited, and the nurses really can't handle all of that. And if someone's really sick, they're sat in the middle of all of it. So this is easing the hospital waiting rooms, especially a little bit. It's easing up some of the hospital beds.
This is the most depressing room I have ever been in my life. Oh, no, he's about to be sick, sorry. I need to move. If he was on his own, he probably would have choked on his sick because he was completely unconscious, and this guy here just was like shaking him to wake him up because they have to wake you up. Because if you start being sick and you're asleep, you're going to choke.
For what?
Marie, we wouldn't let you go home if you'd have told us where you lived.
Through alcohol, they think they're sort of invincible, but they're not. They're at their most vulnerable. Through either sexual assaults or physical assaults, people getting run over and just basically injuring themselves when it just didn't need to happen.
I've met people and they say, well, the alcohol doesn't agree with me. Their memory's going. It's the alcohol. They'll say to me, oh, I've been spiked. It's called alcohol. Oh, it doesn't agree with me. It's a poison. But then when you're trying to talk to people and make them understand, it's like, you know what, it's gone in one ear and out the other.
The booze tank has treated 120 patients over 4 weekends.
The booze bus was a solution for drunk people. This is like another solution. Like, what's it going to take? Like, what other solutions can we come up with? Are we just all going to bung drunk people into one big cage? Like, what could come after this?
I think it's sad that society has now come round to the fact that we've got a booze bus and now we're going to have the booze tank, to keep them safe. It keeps them safe. It frees up the hospitals. It's a good idea, but it is a sad state of affairs that we have come to this.
I've experienced firsthand, behind the scenes, the real dangers of alcohol, the real dangers of drinking too fast and beyond our limits. But it all starts out as a bit of fun, but seeing the reality of what alcohol really does to you when you don't do it responsibly is absolutely terrifying. I'm sure none of those people in there planned to end up like that tonight. So it just shows what it does to your personality, it shows what it does to your dignity. It's crazy. They say the whole drinking situation is getting worse, but really, how can it get any worse than what I've seen? I don't know. And are we prepared to just sit back and let the situation become so out of control? I genuinely hope not.